Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Conscious Dream Shift podcast. Today's guest, she's actually a special guest for me. Like, honestly, a special guest for me. And on the day I recorded the interview with her, I recorded 2 interviews. One is with her. One is, I don't know if it's going to be the episode after this one. It just depends on the logistics. We recorded on August 8th. So it was the 888 portal. And I didn't even realize it until I was like, why is this happening today? What? And so I realized it was 888. And that's like, I don't normally believe in these things. I know it's weird, but I don't normally put, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But like last year and this year on 8/8, so August 8th, so many weird things happened, and now I'm like, I swear by it, because wow. And I didn't even know about the 8/8 portal until this year. But last year it was 8/8, and I was like, oh, maybe it's because it's like angel numbers. But now I actually know what happens. So yeah, after I recorded this episode, I was like screaming. It was so good. Mostly what she told me before and after, because she gave me such amazing advice. She's so experienced in what she does. So her name is Elizabeth. She started off as a scientist, but now she is a cake maker for celebrities, and she also is a luxury brand consultant, helping people building their, we would call it high ticket brand, so high ticket business, but it's like high ticket luxurious brand, with product businesses, but also service based businesses. But she's such an amazing person, and I just want you to hear all about it. So I'm gonna stop yapping and welcome to the Conscious Dream Shift podcast, Elizabeth. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Conscious Dream Shift podcast. Today, here we have beautiful, amazing Elizabeth. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Solaru, and I'm the founder and CEO of Elizabeth's Cake Emporium and the Luxury Business Emporium. So, in addition to making cakes, I also consult for a number of luxury brands, and I've written 2 books. The first one is Opulencia, which is an artisan cake book, and the second one is the Luxpreneur, how to start and build a successful luxury brand, and that will be released in September.
Ooh, we're looking forward to it then. And you told me you were a scientist and a headhunter. Now you are also a celebrity cake maker and a consultant. How did you transition from a scientist to a headhunter and to everything else you're doing now?
A long story. I come from a traditional, typical African family, where education is everything. So I went to university, I did my master's, came out, and I trained as a scientist at St Mary's Hospital. And I worked in many hospitals in London, some of the very best. And then I remember one day, I was looking at a colleague of mine, and she was talking about what to have for dinner, and she was talking about courgettes. Now, that was an ordinary conversation in itself. However, what annoyed me was that that was the 21st time in a row that I was listening to the same conversation. And I just thought to myself,
Oh.
I don't want to die a lab rat. There are other things I want to do with my life. So I resigned, which is a bit impulsive because I had no other job to go to. I resigned, and then by stroke of luck, I started what they call locuming, which has been a temp, but in a lab. So you go to different labs all around the country, or in, wherever the agency sends you, and then you work as a temporary scientist. So I was doing that, and then I decided to do an MBA, did an MBA, and via networking, I was invited to become a headhunter by someone who was setting up their own headhunting firm. And I took to that really, really well. But the one thing I found was that it was all based on psychology. So, and I say that candidates who saw themselves as luxury products, they did really well. They got the jobs they wanted, while you had candidates and also companies who tended to overvalue or undervalue themselves. But there were candidates that they were kind of like the way they carried themselves, the way they presented, etc. you knew that there was something special. So that was how I went from scientist to headhunter.
Wow, and then how did you become a cake maker? Were you first a cake maker and then a luxury consultant, or did you do both at once?
That's a fab question. So to become a cake maker, what happened was 2008, there was a crash, massive crash, and lots of people in the city lost their jobs. I was one of them. I was let go. And I just thought to myself, if I don't do what I really, really want, I'll never do it. And that was to make cakes. And there's a bit of background to that. Started making cakes when I was about 10 or 11 because a school friend of mine, she gave me a cookbook. And I thought to myself, surely cakes can't just be these simple ingredients of eggs, butter, sugar, flour, milk. I tried it and it worked. Now, in a typical African home in those days, your oven was used for storage. You didn't, because baking is not part of the culture. So I just started baking. I'm very grateful. My parents let me. I used old cooking pots that had no handles to do my baking. And that went well, but then I had to face my studies. So I kind of, left that. But when I was working as a headhunter to relieve stress, I just started baking. I don't know why. I just started baking. And then I'll take the treats to work and people go, oh my God, you do this professionally. You're amazing. So while I was a headhunter, I'd save up my money and I'll go on holiday to America, but I didn't go to relax. I actually went to cake school. So there was a lady I discovered. She was the best American baker. Tiffany had asked her to bake some cakes for their window. So she did that. She had a claim to fame and she wrote a book. And I remember when I found she had a book, I went to Foyles in London. And in those days, there was no Amazon. So I went to Foyles, I ordered the book, and it took about 2 months to come. And I just thought to myself, I've got to meet her. So when I heard she was doing classes in America, in Florida, at one of the best chocolate schools in Florida, I literally would go every year and I'll do about 2 or 3 courses just so I can get maximum value. So I was doing that on the down low. And then while I was still a headhunter, I started making cakes and I started going to wedding fairs. So just to showcase, because I knew I didn't need the money, so I could do the cakes that I wanted to do. So I started doing that. And then I went to a wedding fair and then I was spotted by a TV producer. Again, long story. He came to film somebody else, but he ended up filming me and the lady next to me. And that was how I then got onto TV because he created a show and I believe that show was the first, was probably, I don't know, I'm not saying, I think that a certain popular baking show got the idea from him. That's all I'm saying. But he created a
Wow.
TV. Yeah, that's what I think. He was a producer for wedding TV and he created a show where he would get wedding cake makers together, the best in the country, and then we had to compete. A bit like the other format. So we competed and the best cake maker gets to make the wedding cake. And then he asked me to be in the show. And I said, no, I don't want to be in the show. I am not a professional. I'm a dabbler. And he went, no, I want a mixed ability group. And that was how I got on the show. And I was in several shows and I won 3 out of 3 challenges. And that was my claim to fame because nobody knew who I was. All these cake makers were like my heroes. And I was like, oh my God, to even be in the same room. I don't even think people understand what that means for somebody like me. So I won 3 out of 3 times. That was my claim to fame. And that was how my cake business started. And then there was another break that I had. While I was a headhunter, we had to make 100 calls a week to prospects. And I just thought I'll do the same. So I took the yellow pages because we didn't have online directories in those days. So I took the yellow pages and I started ringing. I rang them. I remember ringing so many wedding planners. Many of them refused to even talk to me. And the few that spoke to me said, yeah, I already have a cake maker. But I called one particular office, a very young girl picked up the phone and she said, do you make cupcakes? And I said, of course we make cupcakes. And I said to her, I'm going to be in your area in the next 3 days. I will bring you some samples. Because by then I was thinking, I'm just going to go for it. So 3 days later, I took the samples. And before I got back home, I got a phone call saying, Lady Elizabeth wants to come and wants you to come and meet her. And I'm like, who's Lady Elizabeth? So anyway, I hopped back on again, went back, and this was Lady Elizabeth Anson, the late Queen's cousin, who was
Ooh.
she was the first official wedding planner in the UK, official party planner in the UK, because she started in the 60s doing debutante balls and stuff like that. So I went back, I met her. She said, oh my God, your cakes are amazing. They taste superb. They look amazing. And I got an order from her on the spot. And I fulfilled the order. And then after I fulfilled the order, she then, and this was one of the nicest things anyone had ever done to me, she then wrote a note saying, loved the cakes, everyone at the party was raving about them, and wrote me a lovely testimonial and said, you can use this in your marketing material. And that really opened a number of doors for me in the luxury world.
That's beautiful. And then how did you end up being a consultant? What made you
Okay.
want to do that?
Okay, so I was making my cakes, I was happy,
Mm-hmm.
minding my business, and the pandemic happened.
Okay.
But before the pandemic, I would always mentor people, coach people, no money involved, just something I did, helping people, etc. But when the pandemic happened, a lot of people were asking me to speak, and a lot of people were asking me to share my wisdom, etc. And so many people did during that time, and I was one of them. And people kept saying, oh my God, this is amazing, this is amazing. So people then started reaching out to me. I had a few luxury brands reach out to me to say, this is the pandemic, what do we do? And that started my consultancy. So I thought, oh, this is, interesting. Why don't I formalize this? And I formalized it. And then I realized that in the luxury industry, there are so many small brands, small businesses, small brands trying to break through into the luxury market, and they're competing against the big name brands. And life doesn't just end with the big name brands. And so I just thought to myself, why don't I create something that rewards and celebrates the small name brands all over the world, as well as the big name brands? So I created Diversity in Luxury Awards. We had our first awards in January, and I was absolutely blown away by the response. Some of the winners included the CEO of Chanel, Selfridges. We had other smaller brands. We had people from the Middle East. We had representation from India, Africa. So it was a great, so for me, it was that cultural and geographical diversity that people sometimes forget is present in the luxury space.
Wow. And it's crazy that this whole thing happened because you took the leap to, like, just took a risky decision to go and be a scientist, and then you started seeing how many other possibilities were there, right? Would you advise to everyone to, like, take a risky decision, like make a risky decision to get what they want, or should they, like, consider it before doing that?
I would say it really depends on you, your personality type, your tolerance of risk, how resilient you are. But I would say don't just leap without looking. I would say if you can, try and work out the risk. So even if you have to leap and there's no safety net, at least be aware. Don't just leap, don't just take a risk for taking a risk's sake. Have in mind an end goal. So what exactly do you want from the risk that you are taking? So if you are taking a risk to set up your own company, you need to be aware that, okay, what happens if I don't make any money in the first 5 years or first 10 years? you need to, because sometimes people don't really map out. And I'm talking from experience here. I did exactly what I'm telling, I did exactly the opposite of what I'm telling people to do. So you need to map out all the risks, and it depends on how risk tolerant you are and your personal circumstances. Because if you have a family and you've got children, um, again, I'm not telling you leave your job and take a risk. That you got to feed people, you got to house them, you got to clothe them, you got to educate your people. So again, it really depends on your circumstances, how resilient you are, because people don't talk about being resilient enough. Because a lot of success stories, they skip the in-between stage. That is horrible and disgusting. And you're thinking, oh my God, why am I even doing this? Is my why enough? Am I ever going to make my rent, or am I going to be able to pay my gas bill? And again, that goes on for a lot of people, but people don't share that side of entrepreneurship. They only share, oh, and I've done this and I've done that. You know, when you read everyone,
Yeah.
again, a headhunter, when I read people's CVs, it's all the glowy, the highlights, the this and that. But as a headhunter, as an interviewer, I try to dig deep and go, okay, tell me about a time when something went horribly wrong. Tell me about a time where you were sacked, you know, because I just want to know. It's not the fact that you were sacked, is the fact, how do you handle things not going well? How do you handle failure? So we need to be able to say, okay, can I handle failure? And what are the, you know, and also the consequences of failure, the embarrassment of failure, the shame of failure. So I would strongly suggest that, you know, depending on who you are, is how you approach risk.
That's so amazing. And that is related to my next question, which is looking back, what were some of the worst challenges, failures, mistakes that you've made that, like, while you were doing all of this? And how did you overcome them? How did you manage them? Did you ever think of giving up?
Okay, so I'll take the last question first. I never really thought of giving up because I had no choice. I have nowhere else to go,
Uh,
because once you start your own business, if you're a real entrepreneur, you value your freedom. I'm kind of thinking, one, do I want to work for anybody? And two, would anybody even employ me? My CV looks crazy because my CV is non-traditional. Scientist, headhunter, cake maker. Who's going to employ you? So you better so you better stick at it to make sure you succeed. So you know, so that's the answer to the last
Yeah,
part of
that's
your
so
question.
much like me. Like whenever people tell me like you're facing this challenge, why you keep doing it? I'm like, what else am I supposed to do? I don't want to work for anyone. If they look at my CV, they see like part-time jobs just because I was financing my business in the meanwhile. So that's really nothing to hire me for. I dropped out of school. So it's like nobody would hire me. So this is the only chance I have. I wouldn't want my time to be taken because I'm building someone else's business.
Exactly. So, but then you're very lucky because you discovered that very early. I discovered that really late. I was over 40 when I set up my business, so I discovered it really late. So, again, I have failed so many times. I expect to fail so many times. I was brought up and come from a culture where you never failed. You have to pass your exams, and not just pass your exams. You got to get A's. If you came home with 97%, you get asked what happened to the other 3%. So it was very much a culture geared towards education and success, But entrepreneurship is the opposite. Entrepreneurship is about failing your way into success. So I've had many failures, failures of product, failures of relationships, failures of even, you know, clients, where I have either failed to get a client, or I got the client and I didn't deliver what they wanted. It does happen. I remember once, I think one of the worst failures for me, I did the cake. It was the biggest cake, and in my eyes, the biggest cake and the most beautiful cake I've ever done in my eyes at that
Oh,
time,
really?
to the point where I even got a photographer to photograph the cake for me. And when I delivered it to the hotel and it was set up, the general manager of the hotel, as well as the director of events, because it was such a big wedding for them, one of the biggest up to that point, They came down, saw the cake, and they said to me, Elizabeth, you are now on our supplier list. I didn't have to ask. They literally put me on the supply list themselves because they
Wow.
loved. They thought the cake was impressive, but this is where I'm going. The client, however, they thought the cake was tight. They on it, you'd have thought I gave them a muffin or a cupcake. I mean, they were very, very upset. They, in fact, I even received a death threat.
What? Over a cake?
Over, I promise you, over a cake. I mean, there are other stories I can tell, but I can't say too much because, you know, some of my clients, I sign NDAs, etc. But this particular client, it was, you know, a bit early on, I'd say about maybe 10 years ago or thereabouts. The client was very, very upset. It wasn't big enough for them. It wasn't big. They wanted big, you know, but it wasn't big. But to my eyes, it was the biggest cake I've ever done. You know, I have images of that cake floating around the internet, and people copied that cake for years and years and years and years and years. And yet to the client, it was a failure. So I then had to handle the client not being happy, and then the client threatening to kill me, to literally
Well,
kill
I
me.
can see why, because it's their wedding, so it's like the biggest day of their life. So, but I would never threaten to kill someone.
But then again, when I then got to but then this is how you then handle failure. I then got to the bottom of it. I was like, okay, let's have a chat about this. It then turned out there was a comedy of errors with the wedding. So the venue had done the service was very bad. The food wasn't that great. The venue also threw out the remaining cake. The venue literally threw it out and then lied that I had come to collect the cake.
Ooh.
So I then had to say, okay, let's play the CCTV from that day. So, you know, let's play, you know. So I was able to, again, speak to the client, try and resolve as much as we can, blah, blah, blah. And they were compensated by the venue. So my point is, you need to, sometimes, you know, clients get, so you need to let's dial it down, let's calm down, let's have a chat about this, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, let's see how we can resolve this. But yeah, that was one of the most memorable failures for me.
Wow, that was a funny story, but I guess for you at the time it was not funny. It was so bad. And you emphasize the importance of visualization in business success, in achieving business success. So many people underestimate how important that is because it's like, you know, I'm just seeing it. So can you walk us through your process of visualization? Because I know everybody has a different process. And how has it contributed to your achievements? Who knows, maybe you have some success stories with visualization.
Okay, so I didn't realize I'd been practicing visualization because in my day we didn't have I didn't know there was a word for it. I think your generation's absolutely, you know, very, very lucky because a lot of the things you have the vocabulary to express certain. So I didn't realize, but I'm the kind of person that because I'm very visual, and I didn't even know I was a visual person or artistic for a long time because I thought I was a scientist. That was my thinking. So I never saw myself as an artist and I never called myself an artist. But I know that for and I'll go back a little bit to when I became a headhunter, instinctively, I knew that I needed help. So I engaged a coach. So I had like a career coach, and she helped me with the visualization process. So, for example, if a client asks my company to pitch, I would walk myself through that process of writing the PowerPoint slides, traveling to the venue to deliver the pitch, standing in front of the client with my colleagues and delivering the pitch, and then visualizing the phone call to say, or the email to say, congratulations, you've won the pitch. So I used to do that a lot. I used to do that a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And
Okay.
I would literally see the words, winner, victorious, congratulations. I literally visualize those words.
Mm.
So I used to do that. And this is counterintuitive for me because I come from a culture of where people say, oh, the evil eye. So don't think too positively, or don't say it because people, so there was that as well. So there was a counter intuitive thing. But with another thing that of course, with social media and Pinterest, I love Pinterest because I have my boards. I pin different things according to what it is I'm trying to achieve. And luckily, there are images for everything nowadays. So just pin
Yeah.
your, and sometimes I even use AI to generate some images. I would say, AI, imagine I've created, I don't know, the biggest cake in the world, or the most, the a cake dripping in joy, just something. So I'd
Mhm.
use AI to do that as well. So for me, my visualization is very, very it's very visual. It's really, I have to see it. And I see it and then I meditate on it as well. So the meditation bit comes in a lot. So if I do anything, I imagine myself, okay, imagine yourself, da, 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 da. And people say, oh, you should talk about how you feel. I don't know if that comes into it for me, really, the feelings. But for me, the visualizing and knowing how it's going to go, or hoping it's going to go a certain way, that's really, really powerful. So, and I remember recently I was chatting to a friend of mine, and she said, you used to say, Elizabeth, that this is about 25 years ago. She said, you used to say that you would be the best cake maker in the world. She said, you, and I'm like, really? She said, yes, you used to say that. And she said, you used to say that not because you were already there, because I was nowhere near there. And I still don't think I'm the best cake maker in the world. But she said, you used to say that a lot. So again, voicing your desire, I see nothing wrong with that, but you might want to voice it in a safe space, because you don't want, some people are very cynical. So, because sometimes when people look at me, my face, they say that my face doesn't match with the cakes that I make, and I don't care, to be honest with you. So it's about being able to voice those desires either to yourself over and over again in a safe space, or to people that really, really care about you and are encouraging you and are giving you a positive energy. Because I love there's something about people's energy and aura that is very, very important to your dreams, because some people can kill your dreams with one word, or their energy shifts, or the aura shifts, and you're thinking, oh, why so again, we need to be very mindful of who we have around us, with when we're practicing our mindfulness or visualizations, etc.
Yeah, it's kind of like the evil eye, but not necessarily like in that way. It's like they might send you, like they might visualize your in success, and if they do it powerfully enough, that happens. It happened to me with my aunt. She's a very jealous person. She doesn't say it, nor like it's not obvious, but like it's obvious that she is in my eyes. So whenever someone is like moving away, or whenever someone, like in my case in Dubai, for example, or whenever someone is just doing something that she doesn't like, or she doesn't think is, or maybe she's just jealous of, she would be like, okay, I'll pray you don't do it. Like, I'm like, oh. So I was at the table, at the dining table. I have a very big family. We're like over 40 people.
Oh,
And
wow.
and basically what happened is that my aunt, she's so happy that I'm moving to Dubai. She's like, "Oh my God, we're going to have so many adventures together when I come and visit, blah blah blah." And she mentioned that at the table just very casually. And my aunt was like, "Oh, you're moving to Dubai?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, and she says, "Oh, but that's dangerous, whatever." And I'm like, yeah, but I'm very informed. I'm not moving alone. I'm moving with my boyfriend. And Dubai is actually one of the safest cities in the world. And she's like, okay, I'll pray you don't. I'm like, what? and and the problem is that the I was going to the US, and she was praying that something would go bad and I wouldn't arrive to the US.
Oh my
And
God.
actually it happened. And I right now I do so much energy shielding and like energy clearing and stuff, but at the time I was 18 when I first went to the US alone. I literally took a plane, went to the US, and something went bad throughout the trip, something very traumatizing for me, and I had to go back to Italy. But first I was stuck in Ireland, and I was
Mm.
alone in Ireland, didn't know what to do. And then obviously I eventually bought a ticket and went back to Italy. But that was traumatizing because of the whole experience that I'm not gonna mention because I spent like 1 hour talking about this. So yeah, I might do a story time in the next days, in the next few days on the podcast. But it's like so crazy that she literally prayed that I wouldn't go there and I wouldn't get to the US, and it actually happened. So yes, take Elizabeth's advice and don't say your dreams in front of the wrong people, especially if you know that they're like very jealous.
Yeah, and I think sometimes what it is for some people, and I've noticed there's sometimes with older people, although there's no age as to how people can feel, but sometimes with older people, their unrealized dreams, the fact that they were not brave enough to try certain things, or they project their anxiety and failures and whatever it is onto other people. I remember quite a number of years ago, there was an aunt of mine, like I call her an aunt, in Africa, everyone's your aunt.
Yeah.
And she I was I was fairly young then, and she wanted to go back to school, and retrain as a teacher. And I said to her, yeah, sure. I was so encouraging. Yeah, auntie, go for it. I'm so proud of you, blah, blah, blah. And her friends, all her friends, maybe except one, all of were like, oh my God, you're too old. You mean you're going to be in school with young kids? And they really discouraged her. And I was the only one. And she said, well, they said to me, I'm old, and in a few years I'm going to be 50. And I said, well, you're always going to be 50 anyway. So whether you go back to school or not, you're still going to be 50, right?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be 50 with nothing, or do you want to be 50 and you're a trained teacher? And I said to her, the day you graduate and you're a teacher, no one would care that you graduated yesterday. In fact, the fact that you're older, people will assume you're probably the head teacher. And she
Yeah.
said, what I said to her was like I prophesied, because when she graduated, she literally her promotion was very fast. And
Mm.
I don't understand, yes, okay, for example, there are some dreams that even if someone comes to me, say if I come to you and I say I'm going to be the next 100-meter champion, Olympic champion. I mean, that is, I'm sorry, that is ridiculous. Even I would say to myself, Elizabeth, you've never run in your life. You're too old, too whatever. But the bottom line is, even if someone came to you with that, you don't have to say to them, oh my God, that's disgusting. There are ways in which you can gently
Mm.
say, hey, so have we got a coach? Have we been practicing? There are things, but people sometimes just project a lot of negativity. And it's such a shame, because if we just encourage one another, we can all live our dreams, and you don't have to envy or be jealous of somebody else living their dreams.
That's so true. That's awesome. Like, yes. And for businesses looking to enter the luxury market, what are the first steps that they should take to position themselves in, a look as a luxury brand?
Okay, so the first thing I say to people is you've got to have a good product. It doesn't have to be the best product, which is, people think, oh my God, it's got to be the best. So they spend years and years and years trying to perfect. No, it's got to be a good product, because sometimes the problem is I see so many brands entering the market with not great products, or they think the service idea is wonderful. And I'm thinking, actually, no. So have a good product, number one. Number two, understand the people you are trying to serve. One of the reasons I wrote the book, The Luxpreneur, is because I think about a third of the book is focused solely on the different types of luxury clients. There are 8 archetypes. because a lot of people think luxury clients are people with money. Yes, they have money. That's a bonus. However, you need to know why they buy and how they buy. So you need to be able to position yourself to that client type. There are, as I said, 8 archetypes, and if you can sell the same product, say a pair of glasses, different archetypes will buy different things about the glasses. So to give an example, if the archetype is I'll mention a couple. So let's say your aspirational client type, your only the best client type, and what I call the comfort first. So that's their security conscious. So the comfort first client type. So pair of glasses, if I have to sell the same pair of glasses to all 3 of them, to the aspirational, I would say it's the same type of glasses or same type of frames that their hero could be Kim Kardashian, that Kim Kardashian wears. So that would be to the aspirational. If I were to sell it to the only the best, I would say this is the only pair in the world, and it's the most expensive pair of glasses in the world. So that'd be the selling point. And to the comfort first, I would say it would correct your vision, it would make you see well, it would blah, 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 blah. So it would be mainly about their comfort and their security, if that makes sense. So that is what people miss when they are selling to high-end clients. I also say to people, another thing you need to be aware of when you're entering the market is your pricing strategy. And that is why, let's go back to, you have a good product, but where does your product fit? So in luxury, and again, I am really breaking this down and simplifying. It's a lot more complicated than this, but for the sake of simplicity, in luxury, let's imagine there are 3 different types of products across brands. And what do I mean by that? So if I take a brand, any well-known brand, you have your lipsticks, your perfumes, and your makeup, for example. You've got beauty, you've got creams, etc. So that's level 1. So if I don't eat for a week or maybe a month, I'll be able to buy that, right? So the next level are probably the shoes, the bags, some wristwatches, maybe not all. So if I don't eat for about a year, I might be able to get a wristwatch, or I might be able to get a handbag or a pair of shoes. So that's second level. So off the rack, clothes, etc. So the next level is the couture. So the couture is generational wealth. Maybe 5 generations of me might be able to afford an evening gown, as an example. So you need to say, okay, where do I fit in these 3 categories? So that would help you decide on how to price, right? Now, I've oversimplified because there are some perfumes that cost more than some people's cars or houses.
Right.
But for the most part, generally, that's how you price. So what I've done in the book, I've literally broken down the different types of luxury brands. So you see where you fit in. Are you a mass stage brand, which is mass, but with a bit of prestige? Are you a premium brand? Are you ultra high prestige? You need to see where you fit in the branding. You also need to see where you fit when it comes to even personality type, because a lot of luxury brand founders, they founded their brands based on stories about them. So these stories become folklore. So if we take Coco Chanel, one of my favorite stories, she was born, her mom died, her father took her to an orphanage. These nuns taught her how to sew. And then she decided to start making practical, simple style dresses because she hated frou-frou dresses. Then she invented the classic tweed suit, and the rest is history. So that's a lovely story. Everybody knows this. It becomes legend. Even the perfume Chanel No. 5, apparently it was a 5th bottle that she sniffed and she loved the smell. And that's how um, Chanel number 5 was created.
No way, I
So
never heard of it. It's
yes,
so
it was.
crazy.
She asked somebody to create a perfume for her. They call them noses. So she asked a nose to create a perfume for her, and that was bottle number 5. Now, whether it's true or not is irrelevant, but the point is, it's an amazing story, right?
Yeah.
You heard it, you go, no way, this is amazing, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And every time you see Chanel number 5, you'll remember that story. So you need to start thinking, okay, what is it in my DNA, in my brand's DNA? Are there any stories that I can pull out? So
Mm.
my story, for example, I went from lab coats to cakes. So coats to cakes could be my story. And the next stage, which is the luxury consulting, it could be cakes to carrots. So again, think about how you can, your brand story, absolutely important. You need a story that you can tell, because with luxury clients, they buy with emotion, and then they justify later on. So if you want to drive that extreme emotion, that emotion in clients, especially luxury clients, you need to be able to have these stories. You need to be able to, because for them, it's not a matter of affordability, but it's a matter of value. So what value are they getting from buying the product that goes beyond product features? So that is those are some of the ways in which you can enter into the luxury market.
Wow. And I have so many more questions, honestly, because you're such an inspiring guest. So if you want to, we can like do another episode like some other time, because right now we ran out of time. So just to conclude, what are some upcoming projects that you have that you're excited about? You said your book. What is the book about, and how can our listeners support you in that process?
Thanks for that. Yes, I've got my new book, The Luxpreneur. It's coming out in September. And I'm really excited about this book because it's all my 20 something years of experience in the luxury sector that I put into the book. And the reason I wrote the book is because many luxury books are written by professors of luxury, and they're very learned, they're very incredible at what they do, but it's all very academic. It's not practical. I'm a practical person. I love to be able to say, okay, this book said do XYZ, and I go out and I do XYZ, and I test it to see whether it's true or not. So for me, it's like a practical guide on how to start and build a successful brand. And I reveal a lot of secrets in the luxury sector. I also talk about the things you can do. And some of these things, you don't need any money at all to do them. Some of the things you can do to up level your business and to spotlight and showcase your brand as a luxury brand. So I talk about the different types of luxury entrepreneurs, the different personality types. I talk about the different types of luxury brands. And more importantly, I talk about the different types of luxury clients, how to engage with them, where you can find them, and how you can sell to them without overly selling. And the good thing is, obviously, because I sign a lot of NDAs and a lot of confidentiality agreements, I don't use any real client examples, but I use celebrity examples, because with celebrities, you can easily say, aha. So I've used celebrity examples to try and describe what I'm trying to say. And some of the examples I use are from different industries. So they're not industry specific. They're not just from the events industry. They're from different industries. And there are people go, that's interesting. Never heard of this person, but they're incredible. And I'm like, exactly. So it shows the breadth and the diversity of the luxury industry. So I've got the Luxpreneur. So I would really love for people to, when it's out in September, I promise you, even if you just run a business, it would get you thinking about how you can look for the same qualities that I talk about in your normal clients.
And is it only for luxury product brands, or can you actually create a luxury, I don't know, consulting brand, for example?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a consultant. Yes, I do have a product, which is the case, but I'm a consultant. So, for example, I have worked with some consulting firms that serve the luxury industry. I work with an IT firm, and again, a product's a product. The most important thing is the client. So once you know your client,
Okay.
exactly, once you know your client, as long as your client, your end user, is a luxury client, it doesn't matter what the product or the service is. You can literally say to yourself, so my this is why I attract certain clients. So for that particular client, for example, I said to them, look at all the emails you've ever received from your clients, and I got them to categorize their different types of clients, and it became clear to them that their ideal client type. And I use the example, King of England, King Charles, and Ozzy Osbourne, rock and roller. They were born on the same day. They're exactly the same age. And yet, they're both males, but you can't say, because normally in demographics, when you're talking about ideal clients, they would say age, da 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 da. Yes, they're both white men, they're both the same age, they're both luxury clients, but they're different. So I know the exact type of luxury client the King is, and I know the exact type of luxury client Ozzy Osbourne is.
Wow, that's such an amazing example. Like I've never heard of anyone putting it this way. Like it's the difference is in what they want, what drives them to the sale, like to buy whatever they want. Wow.
Exactly. Exactly. So again, so yeah, so the book is different. It's different. And I just wanted to share my knowledge with as many people as possible. And I just love knowing that some of the things that took me years to learn, and I'm still learning, I would love to, I don't like gatekeeping information. So I
Mm.
would love to shortcut, I believe there's always a hack. So for me, this is probably what I would call a hack to understanding luxury clients.
Wow. So could they be called high ticket clients? Is it the
Yes,
same thing or is it?
absolutely.
Mm,
Yeah, high ticket clients, high end clients. Some people
okay.
use, again, I know in the coaching world, we normally use high ticket
Yeah,
or,
that's what we use on the podcast.
yeah, high ticket,
Okay.
exactly, high ticket clients. But then again, you need to then break down the different types of high ticket clients, because just because
Mm.
not everyone, so for example, Rolls Royce, not everyone can afford to buy a Rolls Royce, but even amongst Rolls Royce clients, you can break down the different types of clients. So,
The
and that's
reason
why
why they buy. Someone buys it for the comfort, someone buys it for the scene, someone buys it for whatever, like
whatever,
the because they love the mechanics of the car. So
exactly.
yeah, okay, gotcha, gotcha.
And again, the book kind of breaks down. So when you read the book, you're like, this is so, if I were a salesman, for example, if somebody starts asking me about the mechanics, great. If somebody starts asking me, can I customize? Or if somebody starts asking, what's the most expensive, then you know straight away, belongs to this type of client. This is how I can engage with them, and this is
Mhm.
what they're interested in. Because there's no point in telling someone about, oh, the features, it goes from 0 to 100, when all they want to do is be seen in it. They don't care
Yeah, I don't care how fast it goes.
how fast it
Hmm.
goes or whatever. They just want to know, okay, will everybody see me in it? And, can I make TikToks from this? And can I?
That's so true. And where can our listeners find you? And if they have questions, want to connect with you more, maybe about the luxury consulting, where can they find you?
uh, Best place for me nowadays is LinkedIn. So Elizabeth Solaru, you can find me on LinkedIn. And another place where I like to, I'm really, really trying so hard, and I'm going to start. I've been saying that for the last 2 years. I am now looking into TikTok. I love TikTok. I There are so many luxury brands on TikTok, and when I say that to people, they're surprised. There are so many, and they're doing really, really well. So I'm going to also be exploring TikTok, but for the most part, find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, I'll put your LinkedIn link and also Instagram, I guess. All everybody uses Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on Instagram as well. So yeah, I'll give you all my handles. Yeah.
Okay, I'll put them all down. And before we wrap up, is there any final piece of advice and wisdom you'd like to share with the listeners who are looking to level up their business? Having most of my listeners are coaches or like service providers online. So if you want to give any specific advice to land high ticket clients, maybe international clients and whatever.
Again, this is specific to the coaching world. So this is what I see a lot. I see the same type of coaches over and over and over. They use the same language. They use the same model. Everything is the same, the same, the same, the same, the same. Just like a luxury product. You know, I spoke about earlier candidates that I used to interview. Straight away, they would stand out for being different, for being luxury. If you want to land high ticket clients, you need to stand out. You need to risk standing out. You don't have to coach on the same thing. So for example, so many people coach on, oh, you know, I don't know, what's a common coach?
Relationship coach.
No, yeah, or oh, you know, I get you to get out of your own way. You know, they use the same slang, the same, or I help you to unblock, or I help you to blah blah.
Yeah.
You know, and I know people that the moment you open your mouth and you say you're a coach, you've lost them because they're like, oh my God, not another one. So try and number one, find a way in which you can stand out. Look at your language. The language is a coach language, is not a client language. So if you're trying to land a client, for example, where say they're an executive or chief executive of a FTSE 100 company or whatever, use the language that they would use. Or some coaches would say, I would help you to make more money. No. A FTSE 100 CEO is worried about, I say they're worried about three things. They're worried about people, money, and things. Just simple. They're worried about making more money or saving money. They're worried about being able to motivate and inspire and keep talented people, or they're worried about finding talented people. And lastly, processes. So IT infrastructure, things that make businesses work. So once you can break it down to that, then you think, okay, how do I then become the kind of coach that would help this CEO to perform better? But unfortunately, and I see this a lot, lots of coaches, the language, the marketing, everything is, nah, you need to, again, as I said, you know, when you read the book, you need to break down the different types because it's like niching within niches. So you need to niche down and say, I want to coach a client who's male, 45, FTSE 100, da, 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 da. You build a profile and you say, okay, this is what they're worried about. This is what makes them happy. And then you build something to that. So you can't be using language like, oh, you know, whatever it is that that coaches use. So that would be my strong advice because I'm quite passionate about that. And every time I see that, I roll my eyes because I know the kind of clients that you're after, the high ticket clients, they're going to roll their eyes as well. So yeah, that'd be my general advice.
Damn. That was the like okay, this point was like around the messaging side of things. Like if you nail the messaging, you'll get there. So wow, I'd never heard any type of advice like that. Like you're such an amazing coach, an amazing guest on this podcast. You're the dream guest. So thank you so much for being on. I will send you over any question that might come from this episode, and I'll make sure to post it down in the comments if you're seeing this on YouTube. So I'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye. And thank you so much for having me. Thank you.